Hello and welcome to Business on the Wire. In a recent comment, Home Minister Amit Shah said every Indian should pledge to use only India-made goods. He said India's 130 crore population is our strength, and if they decide not to buy foreign goods, India's economy will see a jump. Investments in India will only increase if everyone uses made in India products. The subtext was it's time to abandon all things mostly Chinese and only buy local products made by local businessmen. Is that really how it works, and will it lead to a huge recovery in our economy? To answer that question, most of you will first need to destroy the mobile phones and laptops you're watching this show on, because they're probably either manufactured or assembled in China. Actually, this line of boycotting Chinese goods also overlooks the fact that for many major items like oil, defense, and money, we look to areas like the Middle East, France for sure for defense, and America for money. But let's analyze this dependence on China bit for a minute. Fact 1. Over the last few years, China has indeed become India's largest source of imports. $70 billion worth of products reach Indian markets from that country. However, one crucial point to recognize is that none of this is being dumped on India. Traders are not buying Chinese goods under pressure, but rather out of need. The recent lockdown is in fact a clear example where there was severe disruption faced by several Indian manufacturers in the telecom space, the mobile phone space, pharmaceuticals, the auto sector as well, all of whom depend on inputs from China. At this point, India's production capabilities remain quite limited for many of these items, and ironically, this boycott may actually lead to a sharp increase in the prices of things we buy because the cost of sourcing the parts rises. Here's Santosh Pai of Link Legal India Law Services explaining how realistic the idea of banning Chinese goods into India actually is.
A complete ban on Chinese goods is not a realistic goal at the national level. As a personal choice or even at the company level, it might be achievable in the short term. But what is more realistic is diversification away from China, reducing dependency on Chinese products in the long term. This is definitely an achievable goal. And to make this possible, a number of factors will have to come into play. For example, what is the domestic investment climate in India like? Is it encouraging domestic companies to make the necessary investments to produce the goods which will act as substitutes for what is currently being imported from China? And next one is, what are the alternative sources? Where else in the world can India source these products from, and at what price points? And when we come to price points, it will also depend on the capacity of the end consumers to absorb price hikes, because today China is a very competitive place for most of the manufacturing that is done in the world. Some of it, like labor intensive products, might be possible from other sources. So these are the factors which will determine how realistic this goal of self-reliance and diversification away from Chinese goods is possible.
Fact 2. While China is India's topmost import source, it is also India's third largest export destination. Outboard shipments are valued at over $16 billion. A clampdown on imports would certainly meet retaliatory action and hit the already collapsed export trade for India. In fact, in March this year, the Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal actually held a meeting with industry and export councils to work on the challenges that had sprung up because of COVID. And one of them was that exporters were feeling the pinch of a closed Chinese market. Fact 3. It also seems like one ministry isn't speaking to the other. When the finance minister was asked about Atmanirbhar Bharat being an anti-import move, she vociferously denied it. But the Home Minister is now actively telling people to start buying only local. And importantly, fact 4. Trade and investment are two sides of the transaction coin. Along with the spurt in imports, Chinese investment, money flowing in, has increased dramatically in the last 4 or 5 years. So what could the damage to FDI and FII flows from China be if we begin to put in import restrictions?
Any import restriction on goods from China will have a deep impact on FDI flows into India, not only from China but also from other countries. This is because any Chinese investor who wants to come and manufacture in India in the short term will continue to rely on imports from China because not all components can be manufactured in India right from the beginning. So it's a gradual process of localization. So it will definitely impact FDI flows from China. It will also impact FDI flows from other countries because today China hosts supply chains in a number of industries. So even if a foreign investor from any other country chooses to relocate its manufacturing facility in India, they will depend on several input products from factories in China. And any import restrictions from China to India will impact such investments as well. For FIIs, the impact is slightly different because it is mostly an impact on sentiment. Foreign institutional investors are normally large financial institutions which chase market returns. So they basically pick stocks on stock exchanges around the world. So India is just one alternative for them. So they will come in when the market is performing well and based on how Indian companies and the Indian economy is performing. And if they see that because of import restrictions, there is going to be a deep impact on the Indian economy and Indian companies or those listed on the Indian stock exchange will not be performing very well, then FII flows will also over a period of time be impacted.
And so, here are 3 questions to ask before we decide to boycott goods from outside. 1. Does the government have a timeline or plan on how long it will take to replace all foreign goods with Indian ones? The Make in India campaign started in 2014. 6 years later, why do we still have nothing to show? Question 2. Between the finance minister who said being Atmanirbhar had no connect with import controls and the home minister who is openly asking people to shun foreign products, who are we supposed to believe? And question 3. Can the government guarantee that these kind of actions will not meet with retaliatory action from other countries, including China, and actually harm, perhaps in some cases destroy, small and medium Indian export businesses? Retaliation is an ugly and unpredictable animal. And when it strikes, as it will in the face of this talk, it will hurt not just the economy, but people. We opened up our economy in the 90s to give citizens the power of choice. It looks like the ordinary Indian must now be pushed towards abandoning choices for national interest. That may actually make it harder to find jobs, opportunity, or freedom of choice.